Cheers.
We have to get the clink right on the beat next time.
We do.
That'll be an advanced move.
Ooh. That's good.
I haven't even tried it.
What are we drinking? Usual?
PBR.
Nice.
All right.
It's been a hot minute.
Hello and welcome
Whoa.
to the... I'm dyslexic about turning on knobs. Like, I don't know which way is which, and so every now and then I get it wrong. Hello and welcome to the Moon Underwater Pubcast. I'm Kelly Daniels.
And I am Steve Jones.
And here we are recording. We've been, I know everything is all smoothed out in the recording world because of the time warp that we're in the podcasting vein, meaning that we record once every 2 weeks, right?
We should.
Perfectly, and we never miss.
Never.
And
yeah.
But it seems like I haven't seen you in a long time because you've been away.
That's
and
true.
That's exciting. Hey, I've been listening to successful podcasts lately, and here's something they do. They start with a little hook.
Oh.
So here's the hook. We're going to try to mimic
All right.
the big boys. Here's the hook. You ready?
Uh-huh.
When you were listening to the audiobook of today's selection, I was really hoping that you were listening on an external speaker when they got to the part where he was tonguing his girlfriend's ass. So, was that happening?
No.
Or that was like a full paragraph too about the joys of ass eating. And
he went into explicit detail.
He did. It's a pretty explicit book today.
It is.
And it's
funny. Parts of it. Yeah.
Although it's not smutty, it doesn't seem, and I wouldn't call it an erotic book.
I did look at the cover at one point to make sure, because I didn't have the cover on the audiobook. Right. I wanted to make sure it wasn't like a Danielle Steele.
It wasn't that.
Not.
No, it wasn't. No. So the name of the book is Geoff in Venice, Death in Varanasi.
Yeah.
And it is written by a guy named Geoff Dyer, Geoff Dyer, but the Geoff in Venice is Jeff, although...
Definitely not the same guy.
It's one of those kind of auto-fiction-y novels where definitely the author is inviting us to think that this is kind of autobiographical.
I was gathering that, yes. Because it's about an author.
It's about an author and a guy who's mainly a journalist, which I think Dyer has largely been a journalist, and he writes novels, but he writes a lot of nonfiction books and stuff like that. This is the only book I've read by him, but I liked it, and so I wanted to read it again just on the return of you coming back from India for the first time, and I'm a real veteran for a visitor of the city of Venice, the great city of Venice. I've been there probably 10 times or so.
Feels like a book or novel with two halves.
Oh, it does.
One of which is very much you, and the other is me.
Me.
Yeah.
Venice, having a good time, getting a lot of sex in, and you, India.
Of course, none of those things.
Very much just getting dysentery and like being having a spiritual awakening, that's you, man.
It is. You can tell I'm enlightened right now. I actually I took it off, but I don't know.
What are those things called?
I don't know.
The dot in the head.
I don't know.
There's one scene that was pretty interesting where he's talking to one of the wise men who had like a red dot. I guess the dot is red generally, but he was behind a brick wall that was the exact same color as the dot in his head, and it looked like he just had a hole right through his head.
Yeah.
And, so, boy, we just jumped into it because of my...
we should start in the beginning. The hook hooked us.
The hook hooked us.
It's true.
It sure did. We couldn't get out of it. So, maybe this will be the new thing. We don't really do the whole rambling for 5 to 10 minutes. And
we're still rambling now.
We are, but we're rambling having introduced the book.
It's true.
And
why we're talking about it.
Yeah. So there's it's like two novellas. The first one is a really wild weekend.
I like it when you throw around your fancy English words.
Novella. Oh yeah, that's sophisticated stuff, man. You don't know that unless you have a PhD.
No.
That's why they pay me the.
They're like, well, what would qualify as a novella? It's like, well,
yeah,
that's right.
It's not super long.
Right.
It's shorter than a novel, longer than a story.
But then is it a novel?
Well, it's 2 novellas put together as
I see what I want to talk about.
You want to talk about that? I was just giving the overview. Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, sure.
All right. You having just come back from a place of spiritual enlightenment, I expect you to be very mellow.
Oh,
and just let things go, man.
You
know? And I notice it's snowing here, but you're not wearing shoes. That's good.
Definitely
Feels
not.
like you really brought something with you.
Yeah.
So it's the first half novella-like thing. Geoff in Venice. He is a art critic, art journalist.
Yep.
And I want to go into more detail on this, but he goes to the Biennale.
Yeah.
And basically he's covering the Art Biennale in Venice, big deal, and it's a big party.
I almost looked it up, but I was like, nah, I'm just going to ask you.
Oh yeah, it happens. I think every other year they have one that's like architecture and the other is like visual art. And anyway, it's a huge thing in the art world. It's big time artists going to having a show at the Biennale is like a big deal. Anyway, here comes our train.
Oh, there's a train just there hanging out.
Oh, it's hanging out.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. I can hardly see. Everything's dark.
Yeah.
It's all going dark. And it's a real party, and it's full of booze and excess and loveliness in Venice.
Yeah, it seems pretty amazing.
And he hooks up with somebody, and he's really into it. And then the second one, I know you want to say something, but let me get it out. The second one is him going to do a story on Varanasi, India, which is, I don't even know where that is.
It wasn't real clear why he was going, and he didn't seem to really care.
He was, it mentioned that he had gotten an assignment to do a little travel piece.
It was he got a business class ticket to go somewhere, and he thought that sounded kind of good.
Yeah.
And he'd never been to India.
Somebody was going to do this little travel article on it, but she at the last minute wasn't able to go. And so she goes, hey, can you fill in for me? And he got a business class thing. He's like, yeah, why not? So he goes there, and then he ends up staying for a long time, and it's the counterpoint to the fun and excess of Venice. It is long and slow, and he just stays in a cheap hotel and gets more and more. He goes more and more native.
Oh, see now
and he gets. It's not. He doesn't have all the ecstasy. All right.
I don't think it was that cheap, but
that one hotel.
Yeah, neither one of them.
He went from the Taj
to
the Ganges view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's start in Venice because that's where we start.
That is where we start. So every the way I teach these things is that fiction is based on conflict.
Yeah.
This was a really appealing read. It was fun to read. I don't know how it was for you, but I enjoyed it. I was turning the pages.
Yep.
And almost nothing bad was happening at all. Everything was coming to him.
In Venice, anyway.
In Venice, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But here's my question. What was the conflict? This is like my asking my students kind of thing.
I would go with man versus himself.
Well, what happens right at the beginning? What is the very first thing? Do you remember that far back?
God, no.
He wants to quit his job.
Oh.
He gets an email that says, hey, you got to write this crappy article. And he writes essentially a breakup email.
Right.
Did I I just hit this chord.
We're just going to go with it.
We're going to go with it.
Yeah.
It's connected to the phone, but that's probably fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
What could go wrong?
So it is a man against himself, sure, but to me, it's a midlife crisis novel.
Okay.
The whole thing is...
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He's in his 40s. He is moderately successful, but doesn't think of himself as successful.
Right. He has a flat in London. That's already crazy successful for what that would cost.
A lot of people admire him, and he knows that, but he's also... He's a art journalist who covers like gossip.
So he doesn't even bother with a game of catch. He's like below that.
Yeah. He basically is not asked to like do real art criticism and any art reporting. It's just like who's dating who and blah blah blah, and that's and he's kind of bitter about that. And then the first thing he does after not sending the I quit my job email is he wanders into town without any kind of plan,
Yeah.
and then he gets his hair dyed.
Yes, he dyes his hair. That's
His
true.
hair is gray, and
Yeah.
he gets a 80 euro hair dye, and this is like from the 90s. This is, I think, published in 96 or 97.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong about that. No, I think
I thought it was later.
it is later.
Yeah,
It's a lot
2000
later.
something.
I'm getting it confused with the Robert Stone. But it's like 10 or 15 years ago. So,
Yeah.
and so this is a guy who is middle-aged, moderately successful, but not really happy with his success, and feels like desperately wants to quit his job, and then gets his hair dyed to seem younger.
I've never dyed my hair.
Yeah. But the other one.
Desperately wanted to quit my job.
Well, haven't we all?
Not this job.
No, of course not.
Not the one I have
You
now.
love this.
No,
You
not this job. But
No, you love your current
Yes.
employer that gives you a check
I love them.
at the end of,
Well, whenever
the check.
whenever it suits them, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I just, although
Yeah.
I have tenure, I can
Yeah,
I
it's
can
true.
actually just bag on my employer.
I do not.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You're in the
It
real
doesn't-
world.
Yeah.
I'm in the ivory tower. Where
How's the view?
It is a view of the moon underwater.
Nice.
On the Mississippi.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a nice view. So,
So what's the assignment when he's going to Venice?
he
This is my favorite.
Yeah, he needs to interview a woman who is. It said they would call her a has-been, but she was more like a never was.
Right.
She was just married to a famous artist,
Yeah.
and he's interviewing her, even though she has never done anything to be famous herself. But what he really wants, the magazine that hired him, called Culture with a K and a CH. Culture.
Yeah, culture.
They're paying his way there, and they're paying him to go to this fabulous party so that he can interview this woman. But really what they want is the rights to be the first one to publish a drawing by her famous ex-artist.
Morrison, right?
Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so.
Morrison. And so he needs to get that, and that's the only reason he's going.
Right.
And he spends absolutely not much time on this project and doesn't
get it.
We're jumping a little ahead,
It's
but
so good, though.
he doesn't get most of what
And he didn't
happens.
care.
No,
But that's where it really sets off, I think. So we'll back up. He's sort of casually there, I'll say. He's present. He knows a few people. They go to a party, and he spots a woman that he cannot take his eyes off of,
Yeah.
and he wants to meet.
Yeah.
You ever been there?
Oh, yeah. So it's a romance.
Yeah.
And that's part of the plot. The other part is he going to get this interview? But I'm sticking with this idea of conflict, midlife
Okay.
crisis,
Yep.
unhappy with his career, his place in the world, trying to be younger than he really is, trying to seem younger. And then he gets to Venice. Even before he gets there, when he's at the airport, he is angling to get invited to parties.
Yeah.
And that's what the whole thing is there's all these parties, and they're all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And your place in the whole ecosystem is, did you get invited to the good parties?
The Australian party.
Yeah,
or
and this
yeah.
party, but the problem is you never quite know what the really good one is. And if you go to one, you're by definition missing another.
Yes.
So the conflict is missing out.
Missing out.
Too many things going
Yeah.
on, and
All right.
being seen, and also knowing your place in the whole hierarchy of, how big a shot am I? Like what kind of passes did I get? And
Right.
so it's that, and I'm sure we've all been there in one way or another,
Oh,
where
yeah.
you're hyper aware of, of wanting to go to the cool thing and not kind of, having it's basically too many options.
Yeah.
Too many fun things, and ultimately it becomes a story of too much, because by the end
It's all excess. Yeah.
he's not feeling good. Like drinking
Too much cocaine.
coke,
Yeah.
pot,
A lot of pot.
And
That's
then-
what kicks him off,
and
I
then
feel like.
sex, a lot of fun sex that ultimately leaves him feeling extremely hollow. And we're
Yeah.
jumping ahead a bit, but that's the sort of tension. And yet it's just a lot of fun.
It's way fun.
He gets there, and there's parties from the moment he gets there to the moment it ends.
Yeah.
And
he's getting laid.
Well,
eventually
he first goes into the first party, and there's also a lot of art. Like he talks about the art, and he cares about it, and he notices.
I didn't care about those parts.
I like that part. I didn't like the music parts when we jump ahead, because he did the same thing in India.
Oh, see, I like the music part
where he talks about the Indian music, but that to me I didn't connect with, but the art I did.
Ooh,
so
the music stuff in the second part I liked.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get it. I'm like,
I have notes on what I was thinking when I
Did you
heard
play any of that music?
I did not.
No, but you just had a sense of it, huh?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so what I would say is, let's see, when really it's all about getting him to Venice and him not being particularly excited about being there necessarily.
I think once he gets there, he's pretty stoked.
But getting there, it's all... the British have a great expression or a great word, whinging.
Whinging, he is whinging.
He's whinging about having to go.
Yeah, and he's British, by the way.
Yes.
And it's a British author.
Yeah.
And they use British spelling.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know because you listened to the audio, but I will tell you, the British spelling of diarrhea is really pretty different. And
there's a lot of H's.
There's an O in a weird place. Anyway.
Diarrhea.
It's at the end.
Who thought that would have come
It didn't look
today?
right. I thought it was a misspelling at first, but then it
appeared more than one place.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's some.
Could still be a misspelling.
It could.
They did a find replace.
No.
They ignored the little red.
No, this is a major publishing house. I don't think
never happened.
Not two of them the same word, I don't think. But so we're still in Venice, and there's just party after party, and he does like the art a little, but mainly it's about going to the right parties.
So we start out, he's drinking, right? And he's like, well, basically he's British, so that just means he drinks a lot.
True.
And he ends up at the interview where, he's supposed to ask for this.
So where was he in the romance thing when he gets to the interview? He meets her and they have a flirtation.
They're not hooked up.
Yeah, they don't flirt. Oh, and he goes, "Hey, can I get your number?" And she goes, like, "No, we'll just see each other."
Yeah, this isn't that big of a city.
Yeah, we'll see each other. And he's like, okay. So she's playing a little hard to get, or is hard to get, and he kind of wants her more than she wants him.
Definitely true.
And but she's very witty and he's very witty. And so they have a real connection.
Right.
Then he goes to his interview finally.
Right.
And he's got a raging hangover, of course.
He does.
Right from the start, you're never going to get rid of the hangover, so you just
go with it.
You start drinking early and
So he's in the interview, he asks about the drawing. And she's describing it and talking about it, and he's...
Wait. Let's go back, though. He meets her, and she's just really, really mellow, and I feel like this is a precursor to the second part. Okay. I think it's a foreshadowing, because she's got like a Buddha-like thing where she's the only person that doesn't have any ambition. She goes, "Oh, what's different about me is I have no ambition whatsoever. I never have been." She's just this rich, and I've never wanted to be famous, and that's why people like me, because I'm not competing with anybody. And he realizes it's true, and he really likes her, and she's just chill. But then she just goes, "Hey, do you smoke pot?" And it takes out a big bag.
And he's like, "It's been a while." Like it is, in the narrative, he's saying it's been a really long time.
Yeah.
And she proceeds to roll a skinny joint.
Yeah.
And light it, and they pass it back and forth.
Yeah.
And he feels great.
Yeah. But he immediately is like, which I totally related to this. I don't smoke pot, and I don't.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Well, he wasn't sure whether the record button was on or not.
We check it often. Yeah.
We do check it often, but then like rummaging in his bag for things became really hard. And all of the little things that taking a couple hits of pot just makes everything seem more complicated. And he got that just right. And he ends up forgetting for a long period to push the record button and misses all the best.
A whole bunch of it.
All the best stuff she talks about.
Right.
And
so basically, he's terrible at his job.
oh, he's doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
And then he offers money for this drawing, and she finally negotiates a bit, and then she goes, no. She goes, and he goes, can I at least see it? She goes, yeah. And she brings it out. And do you want to tell us what it is? Or
well, it's a picture of her naked.
Yeah, it's a nude.
Right.
And she's sitting cross-legged with her legs apart. And he looks at it, and she goes, there's no way I'm letting him putting this in a magazine. And he completely
understood.
And he's just like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Backing up to where, like, he's talking about how he feels he's stoned. He's like, I wasn't really that high. And then, like, a couple paragraphs later, he's like, I realized then that I was really high.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you're high, is that you're fine until you realize that you need to not be high.
Yeah.
But you are high.
Yeah.
And he's like, damn it.
It's tough to do his job.
It's just, he can't do his job stoned.
Oh, yeah. I'm not
probably that's true for a lot of people.
I have a real particular sort of symptom that happens when I smoke pot. And in some degree or another, it pretty much always happens.
Yeah.
And I fall into this musing of the great, like, human species predicament. And I start noticing everybody is, like, acting so inauthentically and pretending.
Yeah.
And I get hyper aware of, like, the hierarchy, like the alpha guy who needs and then the one who's a little more submissive, and then the role that the different girls are playing. And I start analyzing all of it. And meanwhile, I haven't said anything.
I was going to say, like, you sit back
an hour. Watch. And I start thinking about
Real
myself,
heady.
like, oh, me with I write these little stories, and I put on a jacket. I don't know why I said that. But I teach these students. No, I have a couple.
Do you have it with patches on your elbows?
I don't. I want to get one.
Should.
I have a couple
one.
of jackets from Banana Republic that I wear now.
Fancy.
I deploy.
Wow.
Every now and then.
Nice.
When the weather is sort of like not too cold. But
not like now.
No.
Mm-mm.
Every now and then I'll break those bad boys out. But I start thinking about my role in life and my literary ambitions, and it all comes down to this idea that we're just a bunch of monkeys who learned how to wear clothes and give each other badges
and use typewriters
and write a Hamlet and on and on and on, and it's all such bullshit, and I get really kind of discouraged and embarrassed, and especially at myself, all the posturing I've done throughout my life. And then finally I kind of like get out of it or wake up the next morning and I think about it. I'm like, I was 100% correct, but who cares? What else are we going to do?
Right.
We're going to go through life like noticing our inauthenticities every second and the artificiality of our societal modes and blah, 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 blah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just not a good way to go through life. And so I don't do it.
Much
so anyway,
like Fat, Drunk, and Stupid is not.
That either. That's better in a way, Fat, Drunk, and Stupid.
Well,
I feel
it's legal anyway.
Yeah.
Most states.
But so anyway, he messes up his job and he gets kind of paranoid and then he leaves.
Yeah.
And then he realizes when he's like taking a boat that he completely forgot to take a picture of her, which was the other
thing,
important thing he was supposed to do. So no picture of her and no drawing, and he missed the best part of the interview because he forgot to turn the tape recorder on while they blazed.
He laments a little that he got stoned in the first place. And I was like, no. Like, being stoned is fun, but I can't do it because I have a big boy job where sometimes you have to pee in a cup.
Just for pot,
yeah.
That seems ridiculous.
For pretty much everything. So it's but it's not like a company thing, but it's like, sometimes we have clients that go, okay, well, in order to be here, you got to take a drug test. I just, long time ago, it stopped.
I just think it's silly. But, whatever.
He then graduates from pot.
Oh yeah, so he gets back. Oh, and he sees Laura. That's his the girl he likes. He sees her on a bridge.
Yep.
As he's going under on a vaporetto.
Ooh.
So I don't know if I should say anything about Venice, but I have spent a lot of time there. My wife is from near there. She went to college there, and it is a very short train ride from her hometown. And so almost every time I go to Italy, we just pop in for a day.
As one does.
I've never spent like a weekend. I've never been there really late at night. I've always caught the 10 p.m. train.
You have an opinion about Venice, it sounds like.
I just am just acknowledging that I've spent a lot of time there and it seemed really familiar, all this stuff.
Okay.
And it's a cool city. It's fun. And I don't know if just in terms of travel advice, if you do end up going there, and it is
I'm planning on it.
Overly touristed place.
Yeah.
I remember sitting
like
there
Europe.
once. I remember sitting there one time in this little cafe having a prosecco and some some snacks. These like meatballs. What the hell do they call them in Italian? But it's a Venice thing. The spritz. The spritz was invented in Venice, they say. It's a fun place to eat and drink. And I was sitting there, and these people that go there often come from cruise ships, and there was just so many. And I remember thinking, like, this is the most diverse and unattractive group of people I've ever seen in one place. Like, I've seen a lot of unattractive Americans all in one place.
Yeah.
This was
it's unusual for Italy.
People for everywhere.
Yeah.
And they were all just somehow, like, just startlingly not good looking.
And probably dressed sort of frumpy, if I can use the word frumpy.
Yeah, I think
Italians
so.
don't dress in a frumpy way.
No, they don't.
No.
And I just was marveling at it.
Huh.
And that was something to see. And it's a fun city, and probably the best thing to do is just to just kind of pub crawl at these little cafes and have your spritzes or your prosecco or whatever you like, and just order little snacks, because it's a real town for little meatball kind of snacks. And instead
I don't know
of
what meatball snacks are, but I like that.
well, they're meatballs. And
Like
they're
it's come up
different
twice,
kinds.
really?
There's like you walk up to the bar, and there's like a glass case, and there's like 50 different kinds of these things. And some are like actually like fish kind of based, and some are this, and they're sort of different sizes and shapes, and some have like a, kind of a breading around the outside, some don't. And it's a thing. And what locals do when they kind of go out, they just kind of pop around, and you don't have dinner. You just, like, after you've hit like 5 places, you've had enough meatballs to where that's a meal.
Spain's kind of like that.
Yeah,
like
it is. It's a top
like
thing.
Yeah.
It's very much that. And just walking around the city at all the canals, and I don't really recommend spending the money to have some guy paddle you around
push you through the streets
in a gondola. Yeah. And I remember telling my wife about what she asked me what that thing that takes you up on a mountain at a ski resort is called. Then I told her it was called a gondola.
Yeah.
She didn't believe it.
Oh.
She just thought I was messing with her.
I like that.
And that's called a gondola too.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I guess not much of a story, except Venice is fun.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's probably overrated and it's touristed, but if you just go without expecting it to be a life-changing experience, but a cool place to wander.
Everywhere in Europe, like Barcelona, Paris, London, Rome, Brussels, like it becomes filled with Americans. London last summer was, I was there. I was like, okay, we went where everybody else went. This is bad. Like, it's time to go, because I want to go a little more off the beaten path.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're off the beaten path yet on this story.
No, we're still in Venice, which is this story only takes place for over like 4 days or something.
Yeah, it felt short, the trip.
Yeah.
And where does it end?
Well, he does meet up with Laura again, and they
Several
flirt.
times.
And then she goes home with him at some point, and she goes, "Hey, let's get out of here."
This was not.
And
the
he goes,
acid
where?
session.
And he goes, how about your hotel or
Yeah.
something like that. So they go, and they get it on, and it kind of surprised me because it's sort of a literary, artsy kind of, middle-age, midlife crisis. And then it got into the sex part, and it became very, very explicit
It
and
was
pretty
very
detailed. And
Okay, can I tell you that I got a bit of a Kelly Daniels vibe from the
the writing of it?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And even the sexy parts, which were more explicit than Cloudbreak.
Yeah.
But that had not detail, but it had
Yeah.
the things
You
that
know,
happened.
I was going to mention there is a part in Cloudbreak about me getting sick and just
Cloudbreak by
Kelly Daniels.
Kelly
Yeah.
Daniels. I gotta
That's,
dig it. Yep.
there is a part where I talked about getting sick or wrote about getting a kind of, I don't know, some sort of jungle ailment where I was like completely delirious for like 5 or 6 days and I barely knew where I was. And we'll get to that
Yeah.
in the India part.
Do you think you know what it was?
I don't know. I've heard different. Somebody said dengue fever, and like, what the hell's that?
Oh, it's a thing.
It is. It was probably a mosquito-borne illness, I guess.
Malaria?
Something. It could have been. Yeah, I don't know. It was pretty gnarly, though. It hit me hard and fast.
You're the doctor here. That's not me.
Yeah, that's true. It was dengue fever.
All right.
Now that I mentioned it, and with a touch of malaria.
Oh.
And I needed some quinine,
Side. Ooh.
which they don't have much of in
Dude,
Honduras,
lot
which
of
is
gin
where I got.
then.
They don't have a lot of gin in Honduras. They have a lot of
A lot of rum.
beer and rum. Yeah, that's the thing. And rum doesn't help dengue fever. I don't.
Doesn't hurt either.
No,
That's
that's true. That's true.
so you tried.
I was not drinking
Oh.
those 5 days when I was like I was sleeping 23 hours a day, and I barely was aware that I was where I was. It was pretty wild.
I was sick on the way back from my trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
We'll
gonna-
get to it.
Okay. So we're still in Venice, and there's a real sexy kind of story, and then it kind of, there's like a few different, and then sex scenes,
Yeah.
and it gets kind of more
Gets
daring.
more- It goes up a level. There's
Yeah.
3, right? There was 3.
Yeah. I like the last one before they go home together. He goes into the bathroom with
Yeah.
her, and she's peeing, and he puts his hand down, and she pees on his hand,
Yeah.
and he goes, he thought about, I think it's in third person, and I think that the second one is in first person for some reason. But he puts his hand down, and she's peeing on his hand, and he just about asked her if she would, if when they go back to the hotel, she would piss on his face. And he goes, he wasn't, but then he stopped because he was like not sure if she would be down with that, and he wasn't actually sure if he was down with that.
Right.
And so I guess that was his limit in terms of that, but it was getting pretty risque,
It was.
and pretty unusual, like beyond vanilla, I guess you would say.
And putting it in writing is the part I'm going to ask you about as an author, right? Like, he put that in writing.
Yeah.
Like, he put it down. This is now public record forever. As long
Yeah,
as
it's a
that
novel.
lasts. Well,
It's a novel. Yeah, I don't know.
Seems like putting yourself out there a lot.
There's a couple of ways to deal with sex scenes in writing, and one is to just not do it. Or here's the sex scene: is they look deeply into each other's eyes. Later,
yeah,
they-
the curtains blow,
Yeah,
and then that's it.
and then or just to go there. And when you go there, you don't want to be clinical exactly, but you want to be specific and
Because you went there,
unsentimental.
but it's like, I thought it was, it wasn't like uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Some of these got to the point of uncomfortable.
One of my
I mean, peeing on the hand. I was like,
when my book
okay.
first came out, one of my colleagues, I'm not going to name him because he might not want to be named in this, but I'm going to ring him as a nameless Augie.
Nice, 2 dings.
I didn't hear it
I know
myself.
it doesn't come through because we've got these fancy new mic stands.
Yeah.
and new mics.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We are the podcasting gear is like every other kind of gear. You want to kind of like get cooler stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's with all this money we're making.
but the
from
guy
this.
was telling me, and we were out drinking with like a whole bunch of like these faculty members, and I guess he just wanted to have a like authentic moment with me, and he was saying how he was like reading it, and he started getting a boner, and then he thought, oh man, I'm getting a boner off of Kelly's. Like,
wow.
And I said, well, man, thanks for sharing.
Was that the most awkward moment that anybody's had with that? Possibly.
I'm sure not the most in the world, but it was it was a moment for sure.
I like it.
Was pretty funny.
But he didn't write it down, so
no.
You
and
did.
I could be just lying about it.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, at what point do you? I just think if you're going to be a writer, you just can't worry about that stuff. You can't worry about being
there was
embarrassed.
No filter, I guess, is what it made me feel like with this.
Yeah, he just went there.
Yeah.
He just went wherever he wanted to go, wherever the story went.
Yeah.
And I mean, thank God. If you're going to have a sex scene, you don't want it to just be the bare minimum or just not, why bother writing it if it's just what 99% of people would just expect? So it was a story about excess and about art and pushing the boundaries. And this brief affair they had was pretty hot and went in weird places. I'm sure, I don't know, I'm sure there are people out there that would read this and go, this is pretty normal and pretty boring, really. But
I thought I really liked this.
But
I like both of them.
Yeah, it was good stories. So I don't know. I wouldn't, if I wrote a sex scene, which I have, but I would never. Those aren't the parts I choose to read out loud when I go and do events and stuff, because people do get embarrassed, and maybe I also just have gotten a little more prudish in my older age than I was when I wrote that stuff. But I don't know. I don't know that every writer just tackles that material on their own. But I do think the best advice for it is just to say what happened, and but also describe the emotions of it. And the emotions were he was having a great time, and so
your tongue went in and out of her ass.
Yeah.
You should be writing that in this
story. That was the one. He really went into that.
He really did,
and he liked it. And then he had a whole kind of like the theory of it, like why are they? It started off with it had no flavor.
It had no flavor. That's what I was going to say.
What
didn't taste like anything.
What is the attraction? And he just kind of went off on why it seems so alluring.
Yeah.
And
he was into it.
He was into it, and she seemed to enjoy it too.
I guess
they were sexually compatible.
They were. So how do we leave Venice?
They go to a yacht party. She is given a bag of cocaine, so they start doing cocaine.
Yeah.
And the thing is, everybody is having to kind of deal with their hangover, so they're using more substances to keep ahead of it.
Right.
And there's more parties. There's always more parties. And there's all these rumors there's this big thing about the risotto. There's supposed to be risotto at some party, but it would never come out, and everybody kept saying, it's on the other floor. It's in another part of only certain people are getting it. So so
they're like at the party, but they're not cool enough.
Yeah, there's that missing out thing was happening, and
the pea risotto.
Yeah,
like
right.
One? No,
yeah.
Not like the
right. Not urine.
Right.
I thought you were making a joke, but it was
No. Oh God.
Yeah. So I was going to say it in Italian, but I'd probably get it wrong, and I'd be too embarrassed. But that's what I don't want to put in recording, pizzelle, I think. But I'm.
Listen to you.
I could be. I don't know.
You could make it up. Most of us aren't going to know.
True.
Yeah.
True. But anyway, they're. Oh, yeah, so they start doing cocaine.
Yeah.
And then they go to the yacht party, and there's way more cocaine. And they're given like a little captain's hat. Everybody on the yacht, and the guy that owns the yacht is just like the consummate host. And
also the guy with all the cocaine, as it turns out.
He has all the cocaine, and they do it in the bedroom, and it kind of has this is going to be a sex party later vibe.
Yep.
But they leave before that. And then that's, I think, when they go and have but they keep doing the coke, and they're kind of exhausted.
His nose is bleeding at one point.
His nose is bleeding, and finally she's just leaving, and he's like, "When are we going to get back to?" He doesn't want to be a chump,
right?
And but he kind of does.
He totally is.
Say, "Oh, where are we going to see each other?"
And she's
like, yeah, sure, of course.
Whatever.
Why not?
And they exchanged email
addresses.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, they're never going to see each other.
They're never going to see each other again.
And he's kind of brokenhearted. And she leaves, and then he just kind of wanders around, and he has the rest of the cocaine, and he goes into a chapel or a cathedral that has a famous painter did the ceiling.
Yep.
And there are all these little mirrors so you could look at the ceiling. And he grabs one of those and then just like sits down in a pew and does the rest of the coke up. And then he walks out back into Venice, and he looks up at the sky, and the blue sky, but there's an airplane going by, leaving a contrail that looks like a big old line of coke across the sky, and that's the end of that.
That's where we ended.
Yeah, it's so great.
It was one of those. I was disappointed for him. I was like, oh, come on, you're better than this.
But no, he wasn't. He had a great time, but he was depleted by the end and used up and ringed out, and there was no spiritual enlightenment whatsoever.
And so that brings us to the next part.
Yeah. So you're the India expert. Why don't you?
I just
why don't
got
you
back.
Take the reel?
I just
take
got
the
back.
wheel, not the reel. So do you know where Varanasi is? Varanasi?
No idea, and I didn't look it up.
Okay. I've heard it mentioned.
Me too.
And just
famous place.
Yeah.
That I didn't. India's huge. You know.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a big country. Yeah. And my geography within India now is better than it was.
Yeah.
So I went to Mumbai. Do you know where that is?
Yeah. No. I mean, I've heard of it.
Yeah, well,
I don't know where anything is.
It used to be Bombay.
Before I go to a place,
which is I gotta ask you about.
I don't look at maps and then memorize like where things are.
Right.
I just don't
just
care.
Go?
Well, when I have a ticket to go, I'll check things out, and I'll kind of plan out a route, and I'll read about where I should go and where I shouldn't go or whatever. But before that, it's just so I'm not like getting good grades on.
It's unimportant until you're there.
On high school geography classes. So I don't know anything.
So Mumbai, which is now called Mumbai, but
it's
for a long time was
India
Bombay.
has like a point on the bottom, and it's kind of bulbous at the top.
It's true.
Which is shaped like a really smaller Africa, isn't it? Doesn't
or
Africa
it's like
have
an African or like an Indian elephant's ear is shaped like India.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It's amazing how they evolve. They knew the shape.
Oh yeah,
of course.
They're pretty clearly.
Yeah. So
it's the gods.
It is
like all those gods, but it's one god.
Just one.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you on the Mumbai is now called Mumbai, even in English. It's not called Bombay.
I was going to say Bombay, man.
Yeah, but why is that?
Why did they change it?
Well, and so because I have the question is this. In Spanish...
Istanbul was Constantinople.
It's Istanbul, Constantinople. Yeah. But
why they changed it, I can't say.
But if
people just liked it better that way.
Who is that?
That's They Might Be Giants.
They Might Be Giants. Oh, that's right. So in Spanish, London is Londres.
Yeah.
I'm not making them say London.
Okay.
And
so are you complaining?
I'm just wondering, and I think I know the answer.
You know what I think you're saying? Is that India is too woke for you.
Maybe.
Making you change the way you say things.
They're totally not at all. Which was, it wasn't.
Everybody who's middle class has servants, right? And so I don't think servants are woke.
No, they're not.
Anyway, we shouldn't even use that word. That word's just misunderstood, and it just means pissing people off is all it means now. So I take it back.
To understand, it was one of those. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like we say Paris, they don't make us say Paris.
They might want us to.
Yeah.
They hate us. They despise us.
Wow.
For our the French.
Yeah.
They have utter contempt for everyone who's
there recently.
I know.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I know that's that is the
that's the rub that some people claim, and I've been there.
No,
3-4 times, and
the French
fantastic.
Have always been nice. Yeah. I like the French.
So I flew.
But what about
Mumbai.
Freycinet, the French from our previous podcast, the Frenchie who is on the drug boat? The Robert Stone drug.
He was terrible.
He wasn't good.
No.
He didn't. So he wasn't a good Frenchman.
Extra rude.
Yeah, he was a bad Frenchman. But just the exception that proves the rule.
It's true.
We like the French.
We do.
Yep.
Yeah.
In this podcast, we like the French.
We like the Indians, even if they're making us say Mumbai now, which, if I'm honest, isn't harder. It's not harder to say than Bombay.
Mumbai.
Yeah, and it's also, if that's what it started
So
as,
Bombay was what the English called it,
of
and
course.
then they called it.
And that's why, of course, that is why the name changed, right?
But Bombay is not like a different pronunciation of Mumbai, is
no,
it?
We've
Seems
just
really
decided we're going to
different.
call it that.
Yeah.
But Londres and London.
It's pretty close. Starts with an L.
Yeah. What about Bangalore, Bengaluru? Because that's the next change that's happened recently.
They seem similar.
Bengaluru is...
What's the new one?
Bengaluru is the new one.
I like it better.
It's the old one.
Bangalore,
It's
Bengaluru.
the old one that then the British got rid of, and they went Bangalore.
So like saying Bengaluru better.
It's better.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
got O. It's got that. Yeah, it's very a lot more poetic.
Yeah.
Funny too. Isn't it?
I guess.
You can just say it.
Bengaluru.
I grin when I say it. Bengaluru.
I felt like people
Should
were
I do an
confused as to
Indian
whether or not-
accent?
Oh, God.
I think I should.
Oh,
Welcome to Bengaluru.
No. Ooh, that's not bad.
Pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
My friend James
Very
Christian
excited.
did a. He got hit. He got hit up at his business. He was an art. He had an art, an advertising firm.
Okay.
He was like the art director of an advertising firm. That was his own firm.
Oh,
There's two.
I was going to say otherwise that sounded soul-sucking.
Yeah, it probably was hard in its own way, but he was he and a partner had a business together, and they got called by this scam that was going around where they tried to sell you toner for your printers.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah. He's like, hey, sir, can I talk to your shipping, your supplies manager? Oh, yeah, just a second. And he knew what it was, so he came back and he recorded it, and he did it with an Indian accent. And it went on, and he kept those people on the phone for like a half an hour.
Yes.
Leading them on, and it got more and more ridiculous because at some point he needed to end it.
Right.
They
And
needed to realize, and so he's like, oh, yes. And the guy's trying to do this pressure thing, like, if you don't get it, you're going to get in trouble. And then he starts like crying, like, oh, no. And it was, and then he said something about the toner, and he goes, yes, I use the toner. It's so stupid, but he's like, I put it on my Vindaloo. And the guy's, excuse me? I put it on my Vindaloo.
Oh, no.
So anyway.
Wow, you know some characters.
Yeah. James Christian. I probably ruined his career. Because he's anyway.
He gets a ding for
James, if I ruined your career, I will let you stay in my basement for a couple of weeks while you... while you kind of resettle.
Real friend.
Well, been a while. We haven't seen each other for a while, so.
All right.
We're in India.
Well, so we're in India.
I'm doing my Indian accent.
I started in Mumbai.
And
then I went to Pune. Which is a couple-hour drive. I had a driver. I got there. Turns out showing up on the evening that Diwali is taking place. Normally, everything in India is, there's manpower for everything, including immigration, except the equivalent of showing up on Christmas Day at 3 in the morning, like that, the morning after, like the 26th at 3 in the morning. Instead of having 10 people working the immigration counter, there were 2, and it took an hour and a half to get through immigration.
I don't get it. You said the day after Christmas.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of when I showed up was Diwali.
I'm like,
no.
So
I'm not a time warp.
It was their Christmas.
Yeah. Like, huge deal.
But it's not like Christ, right?
No.
Or Mass.
And I had the explanation of what Diwali was.
Is it like a Shiva thing?
I don't know what it is.
Is it a Ganesh?
No, it's somebody came back after 15. I don't know. Somebody told me and I forgot.
That's bad, man. That's not culturally sensitive.
While I was waiting in line for an hour and a half, I was not thrilled.
Took a long time.
Yeah. And so then I hung out there, went to Pune, and I felt a little like Geoff when he first showed up into India. He was like, he's like, wow, what the hell is all this? And it's chaotic, and there's stuff that's kind of gross and really noisy.
Yeah.
And by the end of my trip, well, I guess I'll get there.
Oh, so you want to do it now, or do you want to do
I want to talk about with Geoff. What's he doing? He's on a travel assignment we talked about.
He just shows up and he goes to the Taj.
Yeah.
Which is way outside the city.
Which the Taj is a
chain.
It is a legit hotel chain.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Expensive by Indian standards.
Right.
Really cheap by Western standards. And so likely, a similar kind of deal for where he ends up, which is the Ganges view. Like the hotel, so we were staying in the JW Marriott in Pune, and shout out to those people. That was easily the best hotel I've ever stayed at in my life. Hospitality was second to none.
Wow.
Oh my God. Indian hospitality is top notch.
Wow.
Amazing. And it was $120 a night.
Wow.
Amazing.
I like that.
Yeah,
I almost wanted to ding
good.
that, but I guess it's not like $120 a night isn't a person.
No.
But I do.
I dinged a whole hotel.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. But
that's a good deal.
I mean, there's
that's a good deal.
Everybody, like, there's people just to open the door for you and just to walk in, and there's security outside. And I got a lot of these. They like to do this. Namaste. And they give you the prayer hands.
Namaste.
And
namaste.
And I asked,
is that how you say it?
Yeah. They would say it to me.
And it's a praying hands thing, but different.
Oh, but this was only in Pune. So I stayed in the JW Marriott in Mumbai as well.
All right.
And I was like, okay, nobody did that. And then in Pune they did, and I was talking to somebody that I know, a friend of mine there. I'm like, hey, what is this? And he goes, hey, it's because you're a tourist. And I was like, all right, just
you were not
sure.
cool at
I was like,
all.
I'm not gonna let them know that I'm doing that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like he's appalled by the filth on his arrival.
Yeah.
And really,
well, in the traffic, like just getting from
traffic's wild
from the hotel to the what are those ghats? They're like GHAT. How do they say that in the audiobook?
Ghat, I guess.
Ghat.
Yeah.
It was a big part of this story. It was like the riverfront.
The boats.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The Ghats. Okay.
The Ghats were the area. They were like stairs that went down into the river, and they were like temples, and it was just like a hangout scene or a tourist scene. And they're burning bodies in one of them.
Any travel shows on this place?
Probably not. No.
Yeah. This is a place. It is a thing.
Yeah.
But
people go there. Yeah.
They do.
And he said it was the most colorful place on the planet.
Super
probably.
Colorful. Yeah.
It's nasty. It's got burning bodies at all times. They're burning the bodies, and then they dump them in the river. And people are always getting sick. Everybody's sick. The dogs are all diseased.
Yeah.
There's monkeys everywhere.
Yeah. I saw a monkey.
It was not, to me, it wasn't, and I like kind of adventure traveling. And at least at this stage of my life, I was not strongly drawn to this place as a tourist attraction.
Yeah, I would agree.
It seemed rough, man, and I've been in some rough places, but
I think you would really like India.
I bet you I would.
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing where everybody says the same. Oh, it's filthy. Everybody,
it's
you
chaos.
can't walk 2 steps without somebody asking you for money. They're grabbing.
See, I didn't get that.
You didn't?
No.
He got that.
Well, I think that's that city though.
Yeah.
Like where I was in Mumbai and Pune was not.
It wasn't like a tourist attraction
No.
I think that Varanasi is a tourist attraction for
Very
spiritual
yes
yearning and all that.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, he gets hit up his first trip there. Right. He gets somebody to take him up. You want the view? And they go up on the balcony and they're like, "Hey, we work in hospice here. People are dying.
Yeah, give us money." And then it gets really threatening.
Right.
And then he has to kind of escape. And then as soon as he escapes, he's like, I probably wasn't in danger.
He's like, once I made my way for the door, they were kind of in my way, but they didn't. That was only oh gosh, they weren't actually physically standing in my way.
Yeah. Right.
And so this felt more heady, more like it was just him.
Yeah.
He made some friends. But it wasn't like anything. It was sort of friends in passing.
Yeah.
And it
no
was
hooking up.
No.
Actually, everything. So the Venice one was about a lover. he talks about friends a lot, and he becomes friends with Daryl, and they first meet, and he goes, they'd already become friends, and just like, just for hanging out.
American guy, Daryl. Yeah.
And then later they, Lalini, they meet a British Indian woman, and they become like a 3-friend group, and then he's the third wheel.
He realizes that those two are into each other.
Yeah, they start hooking up.
So Daryl's like him from Venice.
Yeah, Daryl's having a great time, and so is Lalini, but he's the third wheel, and he's good with it. And there's so much about Venice is about getting everything you want and still feeling unsatisfied.
Yeah. And
India, Varanasi, is about not getting
nothing
you want, and yet
feeling satisfied.
He is satisfied.
Very satisfied.
It's so great.
He loves it.
And he doesn't want to leave.
He starts to fall in love with it at some point. Let's see. He does end up moving to the Ganges View after a while, which is the recommended hotel, because his friend tells him the other one's too far away.
Yeah.
You have to take an auto rickshaw, which I did. It's basically a moped with like a little canopy thing on the back.
Nice.
Tuk-tuks sometimes is what the tourists will call them.
Yeah.
Because they
have them in Guatemala, tuk-tuks. They call them tuk-tuks there.
So this felt a lot more existentially to me.
Oh, yeah.
And one of my favorite things was he's talking about the music, and largely I was like, okay, fine. And one thing stuck with me, and it was the notes that were being played, and how they started and they ended, but in some other space they were still going. And just because they ended didn't mean they really ended. They were going on, and I liked it.
It's more kind of philosophically, I wouldn't say deeper, but it was a different kind of it. He definitely was allowing him, especially the end of it. It goes into a new agey kind of way of thinking, and
I want to get to that transformation.
It's that Indian way of thinking of the, not just Indian, but a lot of Eastern philosophy and Buddhism and all that kind of stuff. But it's contemplating the uncontemplatable, and the language around it is circular. And but I think he did it justice. He wasn't making fun of it.
No, not at all.
He was kind of into it.
Yeah.
Into a kind of like, enlightenment path. I will say I felt a little allergic to the whole scene, because I once did find myself in a hardcore New Age town that outside the town there was like a guru. What do they call those people? There's a different word besides guru, and he was an Indian, kind of, I'm thinking like Maharishi or something.
Right,
it's not that, but it's one of those words. It'll come to me after the podcast's over. But I got invited to, oh gosh, this is kind of, you want to hear the story? Or
yeah, let's
do it. I'll try to make it fast. I was traveling, I think in Central America, and I got back to San Diego, California. I'm just back in the United States for the first time ever. I caught this bus called the Green Tortoise Bus, which is
nice.
It's like a hippie bus. They take these old like city buses and they turn them into like longer range.
Yeah.
And there's like a youth hostel, the Green Tortoise Youth Hostel in San Francisco.
Okay.
And it's like couches instead of seats, and somebody has a guitar, and it was cool. And I met this Brazilian woman named Jucimara, and we became friends.
This sounds like this story.
And we kind of went up to San Francisco where I lived. And we hung out for a while. And then she moved on. She was a traveler. And it was a fruitful friendship. And she kind of went on and just, it was like, hey.
I will tell your wife not to listen to this episode.
So we're going to, and then I get a call from her. Like, hey, I'm kind of bored. Do you want to come and spend the weekend with me? And I'm like, why not? And so I take a bus. Hey, I take this bus, and it was somewhere in Northern California, a small town.
Oh, boy.
And I get out, and there's, like, people everywhere. And they all are, like, like the first woman that came up to me is like, "Oh, you have a beautiful aura," and I
Oh.
laughed because I thought she was joking.
She was not
No.
joking.
Everybody had a take like that, and everybody wanted my money. That was the two things.
Amazing.
And I eventually ran into Juicy, and we got a ride back to this place. And what she was doing is she was on the like a kind of like work study at this meditation spirituality thing, and she had to work in the kitchen to get like to do it for free.
Oh.
And other people were paying a lot of money.
Oh, my.
And there was this guy that liked her, and my appearance was very unwelcome. But he was doing the passive aggressive, "I'm more spiritual than you"
Love
kind
it.
of thing, and
I
I'm
can
just
picture you being like, yeah, probably.
oh yeah, no, I was. Somebody said, "So what kind of spiritual journey are you on?" And I'd say, I would have to say I'm on a more of a worldly type of journey. And
That sounds like you.
Okay,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
What's that mean?
I'm like.
I'm still figuring that out.
So
Yeah.
we stayed for a few days. I remember there was a hot tub, and you could kind of, I think you had to reserve it, but it was a really beautiful kind of like hot tub in this, and it had this big sign. It said, "Enjoy, joy." I-N, separate word, joy.
Yeah.
Enjoy, joy. And people were really amazed that there was some like white-tailed deer that would come and wander around this like farm area. And every time
Sort
the
of
deer,
what they do. Yeah.
yeah, every time they came, everybody would have to run out and like ooh and ah. And I'm like, and even as a California guy, city guy, lived in the city of San Francisco, I was like, after I saw him a couple times, I'm like,
Yeah. Exactly.
And some guy's like, oh yeah. And that guy that hated me, I turned down the request to see them for the 5th time. And he's like, oh yeah, sure. They're just another animal, I guess, you know, or something like he was like real pissy about it. Oh man.
You're like, joke's on you. Someday I'm going to live in Iowa, and that shit's going to live in my backyard.
Oh yeah, eat
Yeah.
my hostas.
Yeah, yeah. Because they do.
They do. They like
fuckers.
hostas.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the story.
I
But
like that.
the whole New Age thing, I was just like, that is such bullshit. But I am not into the New Age thing. But I have been a meditator and I actually
Nice.
read a lot of theory and listen to like
It's good for your brain.
audio theory on meditation
Yeah.
practice and mindfulness, and my approach to it is pretty no nonsense and more scientifically driven than, but you're going to have some Eastern wisdom
Good. Yeah.
that comes into it.
Has
and
to. Yeah.
and there is a what is the sound of one hand clapping is part of it. So I both am repelled by some of the stuff in this Varanasi section of
Okay.
this book, but also very attracted to the kind of the goal of meditation, which is actually to learn to ignore the ramblings of your mind
Yeah.
and control how you feel by
Yeah.
controlling what's going on between your ears,
Yeah.
and to silence, or just to kind of learn to ignore the voice. I've heard it, that voice in your head is
Yeah.
like, it's like having a roommate, the most annoying roommate in the world,
Yeah.
but that follows you around, including into the bathroom, and never shuts up, and almost nothing he says is interesting, and much of it is downright insulting.
True.
And you need to learn how to quit listening
Yeah.
to that guy. And that's my reason for endeavoring in this in meditation and mindfulness. So
I like it.
there you go.
Well,
All right.
so
But here we have Geoff. and
here we
he's-
have Geoff
and
in
he's,
Varanasi.
yep.
And I have one of my favorite parts because it's where he starts to change.
Yeah.
Like the changes at first are kind of slow.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts is when he talks about, he starts talking about the cow shit covered cowtail
Oh, God.
as he's walking. I'm going to read it.
All right, let's do it.
Its shit cake tail was as drenched in shit as an artist's brush in paint. That, first of all, that is amazing. That line in general. But just because I was me with a nice clean bottom and she was a cow with an ass kicked in shit did not mean that I had been her or she me in a previous existence. We could trade places in an instant. The value of your shares in the great Samsara NASDAQ can go up as well as down. Still, all in all, a cow is a pretty odd thing to revere. As I passed behind it, the cow flicked its tail, swatting me in the face with its tail. Its shit-drenched tail. And the way the guy read it, it was great. There was a sharp intake of breath, mine, as my mouth opened in shock. I sort of shrieked. There was it looked back, its expression unchanged, and then lumbered on. I began spitting frantically, but not spitting as you usually do, using the tongue to propel spittle out of the mouth. That would have brought my tongue into contact with the slime. Keeping my tongue curled back in my mouth, I was blowing saliva out of my mouth, using my mouth like a whale's blowhole. So he's like I'm picturing this in my head, and this guy freaking out.
Yeah.
And there was quite a lot of people around, quite a few of them laughing. One old man even patted the cow on the haunches as if to congratulate it.
Yep.
I pulled a wad of tissues from my pocket and scoured my nose and chin, all the time spitting and hawking. A woman pointed out a tap to me, and I bent down to wipe my face properly, taking care to keep my mouth firmly closed so that whatever infection I may have picked up from the cow's shit would not be complicated by whatever infection I might pick up from the tap water.
Yep. And he gets sick.
He does.
Yeah.
He gets really sick.
Yeah, violently ill. And his description of it, there's like a writhing python in his stomach.
Yes.
And like,
he's becoming thinner. And for a while,
he was skinny in Venice.
He was.
And now he's like getting kind of like scary skinny.
Mm-hmm.
And his friends are getting worried about him.
I was worried about him.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, it's death, right?
Yeah, death and
Varanasi.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're gonna lose him.
Yeah.
But we didn't lose him. Or
no.
Maybe we did.
Well, I mean, I think he's alive at the end of the.
Maybe
he's the one that's narrating it.
Sure.
I mean, it's a first-person narration.
Right, but is it?
And it's based on. It feels like it's based on the author's life, and so I feel like. I mean, okay, he's taking liberties. He's fictionalizing his own experience. If he went through something like this, he survived it.
Yeah.
Maybe for Geoff, he's making it more extreme, but he does. He's like falling. He's diving into the Ganges,
and he's becoming. He's starting to become local.
Oh,
really
totally.
After this
he starts wearing that like
the
diaper
dhoti.
thing.
The dhoti. Yeah.
Oh man, and people stop asking him for money.
Yeah,
that's a real sign.
His
that
legs are real skinny.
Oh yeah, and they get dark.
Yeah,
it gets brown.
And he starts bathing in the Ganges daily.
Yep.
Because that's what you do.
Yeah.
He loses his passport.
Yeah.
And
his identity.
And he was like,
oh
well.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? He sat down and thought, what can you do? And the answer was nothing. And so that's what I did. Nothing.
Yeah. And he becomes, I have to say, extremely annoying when people come and talk to him, and he starts talking like one of those guru people in circles, and he's fucking with people all the time.
Great.
Yeah, and like some Swiss guy asks him, like, so what's your story? They ask him to take his picture, and he poses, and he asks him his story, and he goes, where are you from? And he won't really answer, and he gives him this long speech, and the guy is like desperate to escape eventually.
Right.
And yeah, that's pretty good.
He's like, he does eventually answer that he's from London, and the guy admits that he's Swiss.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he hints. He starts talking about like a small town in England where he went to vacation but it's just this like ramble.
Right.
Anyway.
So when he first shows up and is seeing the Ganges and is seeing people get in, and he's like, oh my God, how could you get in? There's all this foul stuff, and there's raw sewage.
It's very dirty.
And later on.
You ever swim in the Mississippi River?
No.
I have.
Wow. And you live to tell the tale.
I'll tell you why. It's because I was on a boat, and I had to pee, and it was like I could try to just pee off the edge, but it was sort of like stage frighty. And so I just jumped because everybody was diving in. And
yeah, I'm not getting to Mississippi. That's like...
it wasn't as bad as the Ganges.
Maybe.
Ganges.
I don't know.
I don't think
this is...
They test the water.
Sure.
They do. It's America, man.
Sure.
I don't need any of your unpatriotic kind of, same thing.
Sure.
One river is the same as another, even though our river is red, white, and blue.
It's true. It's definitely all three of those colors.
Depending upon the day.
It does.
Yeah.
So he gets to a point where he says, after standing in the river for a while, so he is now over, where he started, and how could people get in? And he's kind of grossed out.
He's down.
And he
down
says,
with the sickness.
After standing in the river for a while, I walked back to the steps and dried in the sun. I had not got any water on my face, not even a drop. I put on my T-shirt and my shorts back on. They felt warm and clean, and it was nice to have sandals in my feet again too. I was not sure whether I'd had a wash or was now in need of one. That line killed me.
Yeah.
But I was sure that the Indians regarded me differently, that I had made a significant move towards becoming one of them.
Yeah.
And he does.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that, to a much lesser degree, so my experience going to India was, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to be able to eat. Because, I'm a picky eater, and I had people telling me what I was going to get. I didn't eat much for, the first day.
Yeah.
And then it was like, all right, I'm going to have to figure this out. And I went and got some food. I'm like, damn, that's really good.
Yeah, what'd you get?
I was like, I started with butter chicken.
Yeah.
And then I went from that to tell me what I should order on this menu.
Yeah.
And what do you think I might like and that I haven't had? Order this and this or that. And I started eating everything. I started to
wow.
And it was one of those
You're basically an Indian now.
Didn't think I because I like the food. I'm going with that. I'm basically Indian. So pretty much just like Geoff.
Where's your diaper thing? What's it called?
The dhoti.
Where's your dhoti?
I didn't see those in Pune. I know.
Sucks.
I know.
Should have brought
there
one
a lot
back.
of jeans in Pune, to be honest. Yeah. But, I thoroughly enjoyed the trip.
Yeah.
I was the hospitality from the people that I work with, from the hotel, from people you run into, it was really good.
Very important American rich guy, though, and so
therein lies the no, not very important American rich guy.
For there, of course you were.
But that was the hospitality thing.
Yeah,
was there's no expectation of a tip from anybody.
Yeah,
and so I'd tip a few bucks here and there.
Oh man,
whatever. And
there was
I was told I was tipping way.
They were like,
too
that
much.
is double the cost of that person's house.
I was told that it was excessive what I was tipping, and that of course they remember your name. You've tipped them.
Remember the Paul Bowles story about the linguistics professor who overtips.
Yeah.
The guy in Morocco who leads him.
Oh yeah.
To the quarry.
Oh, he has a rough ride.
Yeah. And it all started with an overtip. So glad you came back, man.
Well,
it probably was close.
I'm telling you.
You liked it.
I did.
You liked
I think.
Did you have any Kingfisher beer?
Did I have any?
Is that what they were drinking?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The question is how many? I don't even know.
So Geoff said that it tasted slightly oily. That was a British guy.
I didn't get that. It tastes a little like Heineken.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great.
I've had it before. Yeah. Indian restaurant. It's probably, bottled Kingfisher.
I'm now on the lookout here locally for Indian restaurants.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any.
There's Mantra in Davenport, and there's some.
How about that?
There's some other ones. I'm sure there's probably better ones than that, but
So I had overall amazing experience, much like Geoff, who we think he went home eventually.
He didn't have a passport, and at the very end, he's just sort of I think he just stands on the edge of the river and then just
belly flops.
He falls in, and it's just leaning, and he. The last line is something like, I just kind of like leaned against nothing or something,
Yeah.
which is a very sort of spiritually kind
Existentially kind of, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool novel. I'm glad you liked it.
I really did.
Yeah, I
it
don't
was
think-
a good one for the trip.
Yeah.
So I'd listen to it every night. So,
Sounds good. I think we plumbed the depths of it.
I think we did.
And, good times, man. Well, welcome back.
Thanks.
And we'll
We'll have to talk about what's next.
Yeah, we'll see y'all next time, folks.